Welcome to Cancer and Peace. My name is Sean Stewart. I'll be facilitating a conversation with Peter Scalzo he's our host for Cancer and Peace. And we're going to finish the last segment. We've done 5 so far in the 6th stage of a cancer journey that we kind of tied off of John Eldridge's 6 stages development in the life of a man. But we really saw that these paralleled how one walks through their cancer journey. And so this last stage we did, you have a kingdom last time. And so you have authority and the ability to influence that comes off the back of a journey like this. And the final stage is becoming a sage. How does that make you feel when you hear that, becoming a sage?
Sense responsibility.
You think it says
sense humility? I think sage is someone who has accumulated wisdom from their journey, and they're not prideful. I think of somebody that's understands that they're not in control, but they've learned from their experiences. So there's a certain humility that they're marked by. And I think in the Christian space, it would be a deep sense of a relational, presence with God, relationship with God.
It's funny. We've been in recovery circles for a lot of years, and you and I have learned the value of guidelines. And so I'm going to put you on the spot here because what I just heard you put out there were some guidelines. So let's rethink this for a second.
Okay.
We are off the cuff right here. We just know that this is an important final stage. But you laid in there some guidelines for what a sage would look like. And if you think about, we talk a lot about what would a sponsor look like in recovery? And one of the key things is a sponsor is invited to be a sponsor by someone who's on a recovery journey. And so a sage is not somebody who can stand up and say, "Hey, everybody, I'm a sage. You can come to me." A sage is somebody who has experienced the journey, who has gone down this road of recovery and inner journey and been a warrior, been a lover, has shown great ability to navigate as a kingdom, who's been given authority over the sphere, and people come and seek them out. It's not a role you can demand for yourself as somebody that is sought out. And there's guidelines, I think, that really kind of show what that sage would look like. And so I thought it might be interesting just to talk about some of those because I heard you start out with that. Hey, first off is this idea of humility and an understanding of who you are inside of yourself.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me personally, if someone asks me about my journey, I've given my opinion and messages in a book, so I'll hand them my book, unless they have a specific question. But otherwise, I enjoy listening, asking questions and listening to where somebody's at.
So I'll state the guideline as a recovery guideline we have is no fixing. Sages don't try to fix others. Sages listen first and are willing to share their experiences, but they're not there to fix the other person. Does that resonate with you as a really important part of being a sage?
Yeah. The other thing is their experiences have not hardened them. There's a sense that they've been softened by their experiences, meaning there's a realization that they really are not in control. They have, for me, it's important to have a deep relationship with my higher power, Jesus. And when I look at a sage, I want to see someone that's scarred. Now, it doesn't have to be visible scars, but I want to see someone that's been in the warrior stage and the king stage and who has fought the fight.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, that's what I like to see.
I'm tying this back to recovery because I think there's something
Okay.
there that fits with the, and it wasn't there. I mean, when we started the episode, it's like a sponsor though. It's like, why, how would you pick out a good sponsor if you're in recovery? And a key thing is that somebody who's gone through in recovery, if you're doing 12 steps, who's gone through the 12 steps and has shown transformation and the ability to have recovered in significant ways of their own life, and that you see the maturity and wisdom in them because of having applied those steps to their lives and had walked through those. And so, yeah, I like this idea of scars. It's like they have been broken themselves. They're not somebody who have been perfect or have never been on a cancer journey because we're talking about the cancer journey here. It's unlikely the sage is going to be somebody who doesn't have a cancer journey.
Mm-hmm. So the no fixing.
That's
a big one.
Has had and gone down the journey themselves and has the scars to show. And you said the word softened, which, because it could go either way, right?
Right. That's the thing. Yeah.
And the difference between the two is it bitterness? Like the other side is like somebody who's the journey has made them bitter as opposed to transformed them into a better lover.
Yeah. And it's, that is definitely a choice, right? That's a pathway to become bitter. And I think that's what we talk about a lot, is finding peace in the journey, so that bitterness is not a part of is not part of your sageness.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say, because it's a recovery principle, but anonymity, confidentiality. If I'm meeting with the sage, I want the sage to keep quiet what I share. I want to be in a relationship where I can be completely honest and vulnerable.
Sages are trustworthy with, and they're safe in the sense
they're safe.
Safe is a good, they're.
Yep.
And that's part of being that lover piece again. It's like they've gone through the lover, and they love others enough not to gossip about their story, to use it as a platform for something else, but they literally care about your journey, about your healing. That's really good.
Yeah. I think it has to be authentic in the cancer space. I was talking to somebody yesterday at an event, and we were talking about the concept of a higher power for life. And I basically just had told this person, he asked me about my health, and I was telling him about the cancer journey and how my belief in my higher power has been huge. I said, it's Jesus is my higher power. But he said, you seem like a peaceful guy. So I think a sage, there has to be fruit, I think, in that person's life. Like, I have to see something in their life that I want. Like, let's say they have a non-anxious presence. The sage does. I'm attracted to that.
Isn't it interesting? You highlighted something. How long has this person known you?
Just Matt.
Yes, so that's why I thought that was the context to what you were saying. But I just wanted to make sure I wasn't speaking out of term. Have you been in the presence of somebody who you can tell when you're in their presence that there is chaos, or in other words, there's not peace that's coming your way, and you know it almost instantaneously.
Yep.
And so I think there's a spirit that comes with our journey that's being developed, and so I sense that I've been around you enough to know that in your cancer journey, people sense that non-anxious presence. And we talk about non-anxious presence a lot, or I think we haven't talked about it in a while. And so, but that concept to me is big. And it was from a author who I think had a lot of sage advice that was given out there. And he wrote Failure of Nerve. And one of his quotes that has really stuck with me about any great leader, so if you're talking about kings that moved to sage, is his point that he made is that if you could the leader can get to being a non-anxious presence, an organization can basically run itself. That the greatest gift that a leader can bring to their organization is a non-anxious presence. So And I think all of us is probably, or not all, I'm going to guess many who would listen have worked with somebody or around somebody who is an anxious presence as a boss or as a leader or as even, somebody who's a peer maybe, but at a some kind of leadership level in an organization. And in many ways, if you think about an anxious presence, even at the lowest levels of organization, what it brings into the team is forms of chaos because, and I've worked for some anxious bosses before, and it's chaos because you're always reacting to the next piece of news. What is this person going to think? What is this person asking for? And you run around like a chicken with their head cut off, trying to meet all those demands. But a non-anxious presence understands what's important, what is the focus should be, and doesn't have their team and the people around them running around like, what do I trying to meet all that. It's like they know where they're going. They know what's important, and it's being communicated in such a way that the people feel empowered to go focus on that. And it's much more productive because of that, because you're not pulled in 1,000 directions.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
As a cancer sage, cancer journey sage, non-anxious presence seems big because I think you got people coming in and they're feeling like all these, 1,000 different ways to go with this journey and what's going on inside, and to sense somebody who has been on that road has
and it has to be authentic, genuine. And for me, that's been forged over years with turning things over, dealing with processing emotions, regulating them, surrendering to my higher power. It's years worth of stuff. So I'm just going to say this. John Eldredge says sages are in their 60s. So there's a certain time period that needs to go by. I'm not sure. How would you phrase that, Sean?
I actually, I haven't heard it from Eldredge that it's in the 60s, but from, you might be right. I'm trying to,
I read
but it was Scalzo.
He says it.
He's the one who stuck out to me on this, and his comments were for leaders.
Yeah,
he said that your best decade would be your mid 60s, your second best decade would be your mid 50s, and your third best would be your mid 70s. And he put the premise behind that. It was for somebody who's come through all of life's struggles and the lessons that are coming your way. Not everybody makes it to sage. Not everybody gets to a non-anxious presence who, if you are able to have your life transformed by all the things that are like all the pressures that have come through those other stages of life, you mature. But it takes 40 years in a normal leader's journey. And so your cancer sage journey isn't just a product of the cancer, it's also a product of your other life experiences. And I think it was accelerated by greater hardship of your cancer journey than maybe the average person would see. And that could be an encouragement or a discouragement. I don't know which way you want to look at it, but I think about it is that this is going to sound really bad, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's like, or I think they would totally understand, but do you know a 20-something who has such a rich, deep spirituality that you want to emulate them?
Do I personally?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
And I don't say that to be demeaning.
Yeah,
it's that it takes many years to develop deep, rich spiritual development in one's life. And so it's not to be critical towards a 20-year-old, but when you're around them, you recognize that most the first stages are performative and transactional, and as you work past those performative and transactional into something that becomes more richer and deeper, that is more covenant-like, and it flows out of love. But I think the thing that I liked about what Scalzo talked about in the sage side is we talk about in our journeys ministry out of overflow. Most of the earlier stages, like the warrior stages and so forth, are ministry out of us, struggling, wrestling our power. But if you can get to your 50s and 60s where you've learned how to release those items, then you're working out of the power of God's Spirit. And that's when you walk up to somebody and they're like, I sense a deep peace. Yeah, I'm not struggling anymore. But rarely will you'll see that with somebody prior to their 60s. They're still, it takes that long to develop. And you found in your cancer journey from listening to you that you didn't know what you hadn't surrendered until you were asked to surrender it. You found what you were actually hanging on to.
Yeah, that's right.
If I think about you as kind of the sage side of things, I really liked the fact that you mentioned it's like, hey, you're in your 60s now. Do you feel it?
Feel like I'm in my 60s?
No. Do you feel the sage? Like Scalzo actually, he mentions like he feels ministry coming from overflow out of his life. And I find that fascinating, and I'm wondering if you do.
Yeah, so you have all this. I have 52 years of in the Christian space, let's say, Christian college, church, volunteer, all the stuff in the Christian space. So information. Then I have all this experience with it's the same, and being a father, been through trials, walls, like divorce and cancer, that kind of thing. So when I was in college, I had a poster, and the poster had a gorilla, and he was leaning on his elbow, and the saying was, the more I study, the more I know. The more I know, the more I forget. The more I forget, the less I know. So why study? But
really sage advice.
But this is one thing is I recognize now how much I don't know.
Yes.
It's so apparent to me. So I'm so much quicker to say, I don't know. I don't have an answer. There's errors in how I think, and I don't have the absolute pathway to whatever. I'm relying on my higher power, Jesus Christ. I'm in community. I do recovery. I recognize that I have limits, the gift of limits. I have limits. And so I think it's a position of humility, like what I don't know is huge.
Yeah, I think I'm wanting to explore the paradox here.
Yeah,
because you said that early on, and I think that's such an important thing. It's almost kind of what the gorilla is implying. There's a paradox there. It's like with great knowledge leads me to an understanding that I'm going to forget all. But then does that mean don't pursue that knowledge? It's like no, it doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
But you've described a paradox, and that's what I was a little bit exploring, is that you just described your internal thought process of you now have a much greater understanding of what you don't know, and it causes you to approach life with so much more humility. And my question to you, though, is yet can you feel God's power in your sageness of what the gift of that in your life, like that it's real ministry flows out of that point.
Yes, because let's say if someone said to me, Peter, what's sort of a life principle? I would say, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, before I experienced pain and suffering or recovery, I kind of guessed at what that was. I knew the verse. I could recite it.
Yeah.
But I didn't really understand it until years of living in pain and suffering and trying to do things my way, being in recovery, and realizing that spiritual poverty is a place where I recognize that my life is unmanageable without Jesus in it, and that I need him in my life. Now, it sounds simple, but it's hugely profound to live a life like that in submission and surrender.
Yeah. And I was trying, I don't know if I'm being successful at this or not. And because I'm actually, since I'm asking you whether or not it's the ability to also sense you've come to a greater understanding of what it means to get to poverty of spirit. And that's the gift. That's the gift of you getting to, that you find that in when you become a sage, in a sense that you don't have all the answers, and you walk in deeper humility and you listen more because you recognize that you're trying to be a non-anxious presence, and to care and love, you have to walk in those things. So these are really deep understandings of wisdom that you've come to. And at the exact same time, you can feel and sense God's power and spirit in your life that overflows now. It's not something you're trying to do because you gave up on trying because of this place of, I don't have the answer. Yeah. And you can actually sense and know both at the same time. Because that's what I thought was always interesting about Scalzo talks about, I can feel it now. My best ministry years are right now in front of me. And I think as I came through my own youth, it was like, oh yeah, I have my energy at my 20s and 30s, and I'm going to power through. And I can remember my bosses saying to me, one of my first big corporate box, he's like, Sean, you only have one tool. And that's you want to come and kick the front door in and take hostages. It's like sometimes you want to go around to the back door and, have a different type of interaction. And I was like, huh. But I couldn't see myself at that point in time. And I think that's what we're talking about a bit, is this idea of energy, youth, our worldview of how we get to meaning and power and all of that. And you're saying, hey, by the time you get to your 60s, you recognize that most of those stories were false narratives. And it's humility, it's releasing, it's you don't have the answers. It's
but all those life experiences led up to where you're at. So I don't have regrets really, because I understand even poor decisions were times of teachings so that I would grow from it. They were growth opportunities.
And a sage needs all of those to be able to, for that stage to actually happen, and not everyone becomes a sage.
And also it's not that I'm wishy-washy in my views. I know that I know that I know what I know, but am I willing to listen and to let another person express views which may be completely opposite to my view? Am I okay to sit there and listen to that? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Like, do I feel threatened? No, I know I know where I'm at. If I sat down with an atheist right now and they said, Peter, there absolutely is no God, I would say, well, that's your perspective. I understand that. I know experientially and relationally that there is a God. I might not be able to point to him right now and say, there he is. I can point of evidence of him, I believe is evidence of him, but I know relationally and experientially that my higher power lives in me.
You don't have to turn them off just because
and I can just
don't have those experiences. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in many other areas too, there's a concept that has been really sticking with me in this as I think about my own journey in that way, is that I had started out with using knowledge and power, using knowledge as power. I'll say it that way. And so if I were to enter into a discussion, I would approach it as, I needed to convince you why I was right and why I'm right and why you're wrong. And I am really working on a different life approach to it. Is my greatest joy in life is to learn something new or have my mind changed about something. It's not trying to be wrong. It's but to have my mind changed about something until it says that it's the concept. It's like it's recognizing I don't know it all. It's recognizing there is error in the way I think and the things I believe about the world. And if my greatest joy is to explore those and allow my mind to be changed about something, it means that I'm wide open to, but it's not wide open to error. I mean, I'm not trying to open myself up. So when you said, hey, I've had experiences that I know that God is real. And so I'm not in a point of saying, hey, I'm trying to allow myself to have my mind change that God is real.
Right.
But it's also recognizing that there's much I don't know. And so being willing to listen and understand and to have my mind shaped and to even be challenged.
Yeah.
Not to weaken, but to strengthen
Right.
the understanding. And but I think it is a much more open-handed approach, which
Totally.
I think is why you get to that non-anxious presence. I don't need to. You've seen cable news shows where people are arguing back and forth, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's like they talk over each other. But to sit and listen to a conversation where people are exploring a conversation, there can be great joy.
Yeah.
When it's like, hey, you think of the world this way. Where did you get to that, and how did you come to that understanding? And like, there can be a lot that can be gained and learned in that type of environment.
Yeah. I've had a lot of discussions about the role of suffering in humanity, and people are turned off to the concept of a higher power because of it. I understand their logic. I get it. And so I'm willing to just listen to where they're coming from. You know what I mean? It doesn't persuade me not to believe in my higher power, but I enjoy hearing their perspective and their life experiences. I think it's loving to listen to a person as to where they're coming from. They don't have it figured out, just like I don't have everything figured out. But
so I'll define the guideline
yeah,
that we're thinking about for sage, and that is, or the marker of a sage is someone who has strong beliefs but has open hands.
yeah, well, I like that.
So it's not that
Did you just think of that now?
I just said it now, so I guess so.
Yeah, pretty good. You didn't.
I'm just thinking about our conversation. Yeah, but the idea that it's not somebody who's wishy-washy.
Yeah.
You have strong beliefs. I see that in you.
Yeah.
But I also see somebody with open hands saying, hey, I don't have all the answers either.
Yeah.
But I have strong beliefs. And
Right.
A sage isn't somebody who doesn't have beliefs, who is blown around by the wind. A sage has strong beliefs, but you can see that they also know that they need to have open hands in the way they approach life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else that sticks out? I would say that you're in your sage years for your cancer journey, and you're in your 60s. People come and seek you out for knowledge and understanding all the time.
Yeah.
And you don't act like you have all the answers, but you're willing to share your life.
Yeah, I think sharing my life, listening, loving well, understanding that I have limits.
Yes.
That's a huge part of the sage life, because I'm not going to comment on something I have no knowledge about.
Embracing the gift of limits, that's a big guideline of a sage, is somebody who knows their limits.
Yes. And I think there's a certain joy and contentment that I have, because I have seen death. I've stared death in the face a couple times, and I've experienced a lot in the cancer space. So if there is someone coming to me that is dealing with cancer, there is a certain comfort and joy and contentment that I have to be able to enter into that space with them and really minister.
The word contentment speaks big to me in what you're saying for a sage, so that they, and it fits in still with this non-anxious presence. It's they're not striving. You're content with who you are, who you've been created to be.
Yeah, and yet the interruption that I had a couple weeks ago, I dipped back down into the warrior.
You did.
Yeah.
But you didn't go without tools, and I was around you as we talked, we had conversations, and I didn't hear a person in panic.
Yeah, no.
Did it bring feelings and stuff to you? The conversations we had, you had feelings, anger, sadness, fear were feelings that came, but there wasn't chaos that flowed out of that.
Right.
Which was such a fascinating thing. That I think that's really speaks to the non-anxious presence. I tend to say I want to add something to us. Edwin Friedman wrote that non-anxious presence in Failure of Nerve. I don't believe that he was a believer in Christ. I don't personally believe that you can get to a non-anxious presence unless you have a higher power, who is Jesus Christ, who you know is, that rock that you can rely on. And that's my personal belief, that without Christ in your life, without His Spirit ruling over your life, which is, I know your life's focus also, and I've seen that you've got two non-anxious presence in so many ways, and those little interludes of things that happen tell you how far along you are in the journey, because you got to sense and feel and your response in these moments. It was something that was an indicator that said, hey, here's where I'm at on my journey, as you had to re-experience at least the belief of a reoccurrence in your cancer journey. But without Christ as in your presence, I don't think you can get to non-anxious presence. I don't think anyone can.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to be something bigger than yourself is the reason why. It can't be just like a thing where I'm not going to feel anxious. I'm not going to feel anxious.
It doesn't work that way. Within yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has to come from something bigger.
Yes.
And so for
if I look within myself, I find anxiety.
That would make me more anxious to recognize that if I have to be the one who makes it happen, anxiousness is going to grow.
Yeah.
If I recognize that there is the serenity prayer, we talk about this, recognizing the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's and then it's surrendering those items that I can't to Christ's care and control.
Right.
That's what gives you a non-anxious presence. So I think Sage definitely does speak to me as a non-anxious presence. So, and I wasn't even thinking about that when we started this, but really, when you highlight it, just opened up a whole nother something in my mind about this as we're talking.
Yeah,
your sageness is coming out.
Your sageness. Well, thanks for listening, people. Whoever's listening.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. Just I think as you think about these journeys and being a sage is not automatic. Sage is surrender. And so I think maybe the encouragement I would have for as we close out this podcast is allowing yourself to be transformed and is part of surrendering your will. And I'm seeing you surrender your will over and over and over to this journey. And I think it's a gift though to be a sage. Because it's an honor. And so I think today I want to honor your cancer journey and how you've come out as a sage. Few, I think, get to that place where they're really a trusted person who has all those characteristics. So God's fulfilling something in you that He anointed many years ago, which is pretty cool.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah. Blessings to you guys.